No Grand Circle tour is complete without spending at least a day in Arches National Park. It's a delightfully colorful place where 100 million years of erosion create ever-changing natural sculptures and architecture. The park is small enough to drive through in a few hours, but it's intriguing enough that some spend a week or two exploring it on foot, on bicycles, and on off-road vehicles, in search of adventure in the land of more than 2,000 arches. Because of our limited time, we'll explain how to make the most out of about a day and a half in the park. The entrance is just 4 miles from the center of town. After paying the National Park entry fee, it's a good idea to stop at the visitor center to learn about the area you're about to explore. The bulk of the park is on a plateau, several hundred feet above the visitor center. The road switches back twice as it climbs the Moab Fault. The sign near the top states that 6 million years ago, the rock layers on this side of the valley dropped 2,600 feet lower than those on the other side of the valley. Once on the plateau, the park road winds its way north past 400 to 500 foot sandstone monoliths that were pushed up through the surrounding landscape. The first large pullout is for a place called Park Avenue. The high stone walls reminded early explorers of the famous New York landmark. It's hard to understand just how big everything is until you see someone wandering in the rocks. There is a short trail, but summer temperatures are often in the 90s or higher, so you need to bring plenty of water. From the viewpoint, you get your first look at the different rock in the park. The arches tend to form in the Entrada sandstone. Here it's way up near the top. Throughout the park, you'll see signs stating, "Don't bust the crust." It's alive. This refers to microorganisms that live in the soil. It takes 100 years for tiny black bacteria to create enough soil for even the most basic plants. And one step from your boot could kill it. So don't bust the crust. A little further down the road, we come to the La Salle Mountain viewpoint. Beyond the outcrop are petrified yellowish sand dunes. In the background, to the east, the La Salles rise 13,000 feet, so snow covers the peaks most of the time. To the north, there's a great view of several more features. These are the Three Gossips. This is the Organ and the Tower of Babel. While we drive to our next stop, I'll try to explain how the landscape got this way. It all started about 300 million years ago, when this tectonic plate was closer to the equator. This land was covered by seawater, so much seawater that 7,900 feet of mostly salt but also potash and gypsum accumulated before the sea dried up. For much of the next 100 to 150 million years, hundreds of feet of sand and other soft materials built up on top of the salt, during a time when this region was dry and much like today's Sahara Desert. By this time, the ancestral Rocky Mountains were eroding away, providing plenty of overburden material which helped turn the ancient desert sand to stone. The weight of the sand and the mountain debris put pressure on the underlying salt layer. Under pressure, salt becomes a semi-fluid. It moves and oozes, kind of like pushing on the center of a tube of toothpaste. Because the weight of the sand and other overburden varied from place to place, in some places the ground sank, and in others it pushed up massive slabs of sandstone, like the one seen here. Starting 100 million years ago, the erosion process began to take over, and the tectonic plate began moving north. All this movement caused many vertical cracks that created giant blocks of sandstone. This can be seen quite easily from the air in the Devil's Garden. Over time, the cracks became wider, and with the help of the erosional forces of water, ice, and wind, the tall slabs began to look like the fins we see in the park today. Erosional forces and waterborne chemical reactions further weakened the stone, causing holes to form in the fins. When a hole has a span of at least 3 feet, it's classified as an arch. This process has occurred at least 2,000 times in the park, and it continues to happen. And from time to time, the arches do collapse. That's the end of the lecture, and just in time. We've reached our next stop. It's called Balanced Rock. It's 128 feet tall, There used to be a smaller balanced rock nearby, but it fell over in the 70s. One day, this one will fall over too. A bit further down the road is a turnoff for the windows section. Once again, the view out the windscreen is quite good. The road generally goes southeast at this point, so the best light is in the afternoon. With the windows and double arch, this is a very popular area, and it can be difficult to find a parking spot most of the day. After a short walk from the parking lot, there's a fork in the trail. To the right is Turret Arch. To the left is the windows. The north window is pretty impressive in the evening, but in the morning, if you climb through it, you'll see one of the park's iconic views. That's Turret Arch, as seen through the north window just after sunrise. To get to this spot, well, it requires a bit of a scramble. It's not easy or even very safe. In fact, the man in this shot decided it was too dangerous for him to try to get to this camera position. Once here and after your nerves have settled, you get to appreciate just how big and incredible these formations are. Across the parking lot is another well-known feature, Double Arch. You may recognize it from a scene in the Indiana Jones movies. With a little effort, you can climb right into it. A further 2.5 miles up the road is a spur road to the most famous arch in the park, Delicate Arch. Again, it can be difficult to find a place to park. A small cabin near the trailhead was built by the Wolf family, who settled here in the late 1800s. They managed to eke out a living here for more than 20 years. Delicate Arch is 1.5 miles and almost 500 feet up the mostly slick rock trail, which, by the way, isn't slippery. It's more like sandpaper. This is the most recognized view in Utah. It's even on the state license plate. The 63-foot tall arch is at the edge of a large sandstone bowl that has been hollowed out by swirling wind and water. Again, the LaSalle Mountains provide the backdrop. At sunset, this is the perfect place to be. If the main Delicate Arch parking lot is full, there's another way to see the famous arch. Head a mile or so down the road to the lower Delicate Arch trailhead. This trail is less traveled, and you can't get very close to it from here. But it's still amazingly odd to see a large stone arch perched in a bowl on the edge of a sheer cliff. The road next leads to the Fiery Furnace. Here you can take a ranger-led hike, but you have to purchase your tickets in advance to guarantee a spot. Unfortunately, the only video we have of it is from 1995. The trail is much like a maze, and you're not allowed to explore it on your own until after you've completed a ranger-led hike. The hike is only about 2 miles long, but with all the tight passageways and detailed ranger talks, it takes 3 to 3.5 hours to complete. At one point, you can crawl through a small arch. At another, your feet don't even touch the ground, as you press your hands and feet against the sides of 2 fins to move through a tight section. It's actually about 20 degrees cooler in the Fiery Furnace than it is in the outside air. So on a hot summer day, this is a cool ticket to have, and it's a great way to spend an afternoon. We're now on our way to the Devil's Garden. On the way, you may want to stop at Skyline Arch. It's one of the biggest in the park. As you might expect, it's also hard to find a parking spot in the Devil's Garden. If you find a spot, take the easy hike to the largest natural rock span in the world. The trail is sandy, and on hot days the trip can be tiring, so it's always a good idea to bring plenty of water. Soon, there's a view of fins in the distance. About a mile in, the trail forks to the left, and you can see the largest natural rock span in the world, Landscape Arch. In the afternoon, it's in shadow, but in the morning, it's lit. From base to base, it's 306 feet across, and no, you're not allowed to walk across it. Many years ago, a man died trying. Beyond Landscape Arch, there are many more arches along the trail. At about the 3-mile point, you get the chance to walk on top of a fin. It's a pretty unique experience. If you plan your trip very well, you can do all of the things described in this segment in a day to a day and a half. Although weather and crowds may force you to improvise. But no matter what you do, I'll bet that arches will be one of the highlights of your Grand Circle trip. For those of you interested in photography, here's a review of my favorite photo ops in the park. In addition to a good camera and tripod, you should also have an app on your phone that tells you where the sun will be at any time, anywhere. I use Helios for the iPhone. You should scout your locations on the phone before you start your trip. Around noon, most of the wall is in the sun. And in late afternoon, the good light will be hitting the largest wall. And that's when this shot was taken. At Balanced Rock, there are times in the morning when it can be backlit, so it's safer to shoot in the afternoon. The snowpack LaSalle Mountains will also be lit in the afternoon. As we said, it's best to shoot the back side of the north window just after sunrise. But the side facing the parking lot looks great in the afternoon. Often tour groups of up to 20 people are here well before sunrise, leaving no room for many who want to get to this spot. This shot was taken near the windows. All I did was turn around and point the lens towards Double Arch. The main park road looks great in the late morning to early evening when heading north into the park. Going in the other direction, it's backlit in the evening. The best light is also on the fiery furnace in the afternoon and evening. To capture landscape arch in the sun, you'll have to hike a mile or so in the morning. In the afternoon it's backlit, and it's even hard to see the arch. The best time to shoot delicate arch is at sunset. If the weather's nice, there will be a crowd, but there are plenty of good places to put your tripod. But still, it's best to be early. Again, remember to scout the location using a map or preferably a tool like Helios on the iPhone. It will tell you when and where the sun will rise and set. It'll really help you get a nice shot.